Hey, it's a new Sprint Ride Option podcast, and the off-season hasn't officially started, but guess what? This is already the most stressful off-season in Sprint Ride Option podcast history. Let's talk about it.
Welcome, everybody.
We are live.
My name is Jason Aponte.
I am Andrew Pasquini.
We're working. That's it. We're working over here. That's it. Let's go Niners.
Let's go Niners. Sprint Ride Option podcast. My goodness, we are live. It is a new edition of the Sprint Ride Option podcast. I'm Andrew Pasquini, joined as always by Jason Aponte. And Jason Aponte, I wish so badly this was an episode where we could look at that free agent list and say, the 49ers got some money to spend. Let's pick some players to make this team better. And unfortunately, it doesn't seem like that's necessarily going to be the case. But before we get too deep into it, Jason, how you doing on this lovely Wednesday afternoon?
I'm great, man. It's good to see you, and it's good to be back doing Sprint Ride Option and everything as well. But I guess I'll start here. In terms of offseason, on a scale of 1 to Mac Jones at 3, how stressful has it been going into March 5th?
I would say this is more stressful than Mac Jones at 3, only because, and I mentioned it before we started this podcast, this has a little bit of a feeling of Jim Harbaugh's last season. And listen, I will say it's March 5th, Jason. The offseason hasn't started yet. There is so much that can change in between now and August when this team starts coming together, who it is. But right now, talking about Mac Jones at 3 feels like a walk in the park compared to what this offseason could be.
Yeah, and you know, I think the first real clue, and of all the things that was said by John Lynch at the Combine, people chose to freak out over the Brock Purdy thing. I didn't. I thought that was pretty par for the course. People chose to freak out about Christian McCaffrey taking part in parts of the offseason. I thought that was par for the course. I thought the one thing that was the head turner was we need to get younger. We need to reset our cap situation. And when I heard that, my ears pricked up. And I remember doing the instant reaction inside the media room, and I said, that alerts me to the idea that while we thought there were going to be people gone, there may be more people gone than we believed, and names that we never could have thought of. And yet, here we are with all of the rumors around everyone, not named Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, that's it, basically, and George Kittle, right, and Christian McCaffrey. It seems like almost everyone else is like, it feels like every other 49er player is the app on your iPhone when you hold it and they all start shaking and you're about to delete one and you got to figure out which one it is. That's exactly what this roster feels like right now.
Yeah, and let's start with the first thing that we know is going to happen, right? Because there's a lot of speculation out there. Let's get into the first thing. Happened on Saturday. Deebo Samuel going to the Washington Commanders. The 49ers getting a 5th-round pick out of it. Washington takes the contract, which to me was pretty big. Now, I've seen both sides, Jason, so if you can clarify it for me, does that kill his dead cap number? I thought I saw yes and no. Does it not?
It doesn't. It just accelerates it. So instead of it being spread out over years, the 49ers kind of take a poison pill and get rid of it now, and this is part of resetting the situation. At the Combine, this was probably the worst-kept secret that he was a Commander, and it was done deal. All right, so I should rephrase that. Not that it was a trade, that the Commanders were going to sit there and wait. The idea that they're taking on the contract and sending a 5th, I think that's a huge win for the 49ers. But yeah, it just felt like the writing was on the wall. John Lynch spoke at the Combine and said, we're working with him and we're in good spirits and everything as well too. So it just felt like this was necessary, but it never signified anything other than something that needed to happen based on the trade request and based on perhaps, I guess I was hoping that it meant the 49ers offense was about to evolve a little bit and not have a Deebo Samuel-like player in it, which I've been advocating for. And I wrote about today on NinersNation.com about, don't replace Deebo with another guy who has a skill set similar to Deebo. Just get a wide receiver who can really separate and run. Let's keep things simple here.
Yeah, and I look at the Deebo thing two different ways. I look at it within itself. Yes, it was a move that needed to be made. Yeah, absolutely. I don't disagree. And what I think is going to be really funny is I'm at a point where Deebo just needed a change of scenery. Now he's going to a Cliff Kingsbury offense that just specializes in what Deebo does. We're
Mhm,
going to be talking about Deebo like the Niners shouldn't have traded him come
mhm,
September, October, but the Niners always needed to trade him. He's going to improve in Washington, and it's just something we're going to have to deal with. It's okay. He wasn't going to get better in San Francisco, but the other side of it, with the addition of the Brandon Aiyuk talk, and this is what we'll talk more Deebo here in a second. I just kind of this is the other way I look at it. If it was just Deebo Samuel by himself that was getting traded, I'd be fine, be happy with it. You know, whatever, it happens. However, trading both Deebo Samuel and Brandon Aiyuk within the same offseason,
mhm.
both of them coming off of off seasons where they had extensions, the Niners could have traded them for so much more. I couldn't help but think to go back and look at what the Niners could have had if they had traded Deebo 2 years ago, and that was they extended him based off of a season
Mhm.
that, let's be honest, he was never going to accomplish again, and
Never.
and that's fine. Like that just puts into context how good he was. But now you have to go back and see. Well, if you wanted to maybe believe it, the Niners could have had the 10th pick from the Jets. That could have been Garrett Wilson. The
Yes.
Niners, at worst, a second round pick, right? Niners get a 5th round pick for Deebo Samuel 3 years removed after he's I'm not going to use the word. I saw the word washed entirely too much about Deebo Samuel
Mhm,
because, as I said, he's going to go to Washington and be good. So I don't want to use wash, but
mhm,
wore out his welcome with the 49ers, right? So that needed to happen. But then you look at the Brandon Aiyuk, and I'll remove the injury because I understand the injury aspect of it. Yes, we don't know how he's going to return. But the Niners could have traded him last year for what?
mhm.
Second, a first, and instead they extend him. And I just can't understand trading both of them in the same offseason. I could understand getting rid of Ayuk last year with the extension situation and then getting rid of Deebo after this season. I'm really scratching my head at the idea of trading
Mhm,
both. And I know this was just Deebo for this portion, but it leaked into Deebo and Ayuk.
mhm.
I can't fathom that situation right now.
Well, I think it all ties into kind of the idea of the report that the Yorks and everybody were unsatisfied with the spending, right? And the fact that the 49 are in the business of not of not doing right by their players, but winning the negotiation. That's how I feel. Like when I watch how the negotiations play out through the media, they're more in the business of, oh, we won the negotiation. That's not the way you should be going about any of these things. So I feel like after the Bosa deal, they caved. The Aiyuk deal, they caved, right? And it was always at the last minute. And then you have a season like this. Throw on top the fact that now this knee injury isn't just your normal run of the mill torn ACL, it's all the CLs, ACL, MCL, PCL. And I think our largest example is Navarro Bowman, who was
Mhm.
never the same after
Yeah.
that happened in Seattle, right? So I think
Mhm.
you throw in the fact that there's a little bit of buyer's remorse from the 49ers and the fact that now you have this injury in which you're going to be paying Brandon Aiyuk $30 million and you don't know what you're about to get. And there's
Mhm.
so I think really the buyer's remorse and everything kind of comes into the fact that the 49ers are trying to get out from this contract before it becomes completely untradeable. Because if Brandon Aiyuk comes back and he is not 100%, and he is not the guy that he showed from 2 years ago, you have this contract that is largely untradeable.
Yeah.
Now, are the 49ers taking a chance by doing this and removing their best separator from their team? Yes, and yes.
Mhm.
But it does seem that the 49ers are looking to move into cutting costs, getting rid of the contract. The dead cap hit would be astronomical, but you get rid of it in 1 year. This year feels very, very, very much like a reset. And that's the part that I think is the most tense and the most stressful for
Mhm.
49ers fans is we all assumed we're right back in the saddle. We've got a pick number 11 and a fourth place schedule, and everyone's going to be back, and other teams are getting
Super
worse.
Bowl 60s at Levi's
And
Stadium,
Levi's,
Jason.
yeah. And now, from what you're hearing, and depending on what you're believing, it certainly feels like this is a little bit more of a reset than we wanted to actually believe it was.
So here's my counter. And I don't necessarily believe this. This is just kind of I think if we're going down the path of cutting costs, Jason, which is what Jed York and John Lynch have been saying they're going to do, or whatever it may be. I can think of a very good way to cut a cost by, I don't know, trading this quarterback who might be future money that we don't know if. Essentially what I'm trying to say is why would you extend Brock Purdy to this mega $1 million contract? Because it's not going to be 45 million. Niners already allegedly have tried that number, and that's not going to work. Why would you extend this quarterback that you as an organization are unsure of? Because to me, if you were sure of him, we wouldn't be here yet. We would not be here. Niners would have extended him after the Super Bowl appearance if they were sure of him. Why would you strip everything from this offense on a season where we saw that Brock Purdy could not handle a stripped down offense around him without Brandon Aiyuk, with a bad Deebo Samuel? Why are you cutting around him just to pay him? Is it this hope of, well, we already got Deebo and Aiyuk with draft picks, maybe we just pay, we give Purdy the Garoppolo contract and just build bare bones around him again and hope we hit again? That's where I get confused, because if it's truly about cost cutting, and yes, it's a horrible take. I'm not saying trade Brock Purdy. I am saying, with this line of thought of cutting costs, why not prevent this big deal? Why not look to move a Nick Bosa? Why not look to move other people? Mm-hmm. Why just specifically Aiyuk and others? It's just a very, I understand it's a horrible take. It's a slippery slope of thought of, if we're really retooling, why are we going to pay a quarterback X amount of millions of dollars when it's this retool situation?
So I think it's a little bit of a few things. And one is obviously when you hear John Lynch say get younger. So how do you do that? You stockpile picks. And I think that's what the 49ers are in the business of trying to get right now, is as many picks as possible and trying to get young, cheap, impactful talent. Spoiler alert, I'm going to tell you guys in a little bit who I want them to take at pick 11. And, it's going to be at a position that you guys are not going to like. But I'm standing on business with this one. And two, there is a little bit of a sentiment of the Yorks taking away personnel control from Kyle Shanahan, a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. And I do think that the Aiyuk negotiation got a little contentious. It got very contentious. Yeah. And I think that they really did not enjoy the way that he behaved, and only to turn around and have them cave, in which the Yorks signed off on the deal saying, okay, we got you your guy, go and win it. And not only did you not win it, you won 6 games. Yeah. And now he's hurt. So it's so many things that are going on right now. And again, with the Brock stuff, Brock's under contract. Yeah. Brock's not going to hold out. And you know what? If you don't like the deal that we have in front of you, we'll franchise tag you. And we'll do this all over again. Brock Purdy's not in the business of holding out. That's not what he's going to do. That doesn't help him any. Helps him none. Because that doesn't toll as a year in the contract, and you're right back in the same spot. And think about how damaging that would be for you to miss an entire season. Not going to happen. So the 49ers, while there were other people that were willing to do it, Nick Bosa, Brandon Aiyuk, those guys are higher up on the list of their position group. Nick Bosa is a top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guy, depending on the day. Brandon Aiyuk was coming off a season of insane efficiency in which people were putting him in the top 10 of wide receivers.
Yep.
Brock Purdy's not a top 10 quarterback.
No.
So you're under contract. Here's the deal. We're going to start here. We'll meet somewhere. If we don't, you still have to play. And if you don't, we'll franchise tag you and we'll do this dance again next year.
No.
And Adam Schefter laid it out. It's still only going to be $5 million this year. Yep. Tag him twice, and it's less than $100 million.
Yeah.
What is he going to want in a guarantee right away off the rip? Much more than $100 million. So there's many ways that this can go. I don't look at it as they're just stripping things away. It's we have the leverage here, and now we've already lost all these deals to Bosa and Aiyuk. We're not losing this deal to you now. And I hate that it had to be Brock. But now all of a sudden this year is when the 49ers want to sit there and say, hey, we're not losing this deal. So come to our terms or just go out there and play. I hate that it had to be Brock, but they're drawing a line in the sand on this one instead of all the other ones before this gets to this point.
But in a way, isn't Purdy the silliest one to draw the line in the sand on because of how much the quarterback market changed? And that's not to say the receiver market or the
quarterback
market. The quarterback market, there is a chance that the Niners play this song and dance where it's okay. We'll play this year out under contract. Next year we'll tag you again. And there's a chance by the time Purdy comes to the table looking for that long-term extension once again, that let's just say the number's at, I'm pulling a number out of my ass, 80 million a year, right? Like it's fully possible that the market. So it's just, I guess the best way to put it, again, I'm not trying to trade Brock Purdy. I understand he's locked in here for a few more years at minimum. It just really feels like the beginning of a team in disarray. And that's what I don't like. And I tweeted this out the other day. I texted it to the group. Of this team right now, as it feels, is a team that's going to have a fire sale at the trade deadline. Like that's just how it feels right now. Things obvious. As I said, March 5th, the new league year doesn't start till next week. We could be talking about a Niners team that, despite everything, brings in Dre Greenlaw, Devontae Adams, whatever free agent names you want to say, and they look much better in a week and a half than they do right now. But as of this second, this is just remember how I talked, Jason, about things that bad franchises do compared to good franchises? And I haven't wanted to put the Niners in that bad franchise. This feels like a teetering point where they go one way. This looks really smart, and it worked. And the Niners win a Super Bowl in 2 years, whatever it may be. They win Super Bowl 60 at Levi Stadium, Jason. Like that could fully happen because I trust this team, but there's also the world where the pendulum swings that other way, and we're looking at a Jim Tom Sula, Chip Kelly led couple years where the team just like, and that's my concern. Like even after 2020 and that season, never really felt like we were at this point of like, oh, this is just a bad, it was never this is the start of something bad. It was just always kind of like, oh, it's a blip within a bunch of good. Right now, this just, again, as I said, March 5th can turn around. It's just right now, I don't see that path necessarily. And it's very hard because I just don't like the idea of, and maybe it's PTSD, Jason, where, there's some younger Niner fans who listen to us who don't necessarily remember the exact details of the ousting of Jim Harbaugh. But this just feels like that first little piece of like Jed York's getting his hand into the pot again, and we saw what happened the last time. And I think that's maybe a lot of where my concerns come from.
Yeah, and again, this is March 5th, and Andrew's right. I mean, I'm doing my part. I lit a candle. I'm trying to get rid of all of the bad juju, like right now. I lit a candle to fix it, but I still genuinely think that the 49ers and Brock are going to find the middle ground.
Yes.
I don't think Brock is going to hold out one or is going to make this contentious all the way through. I just don't. I mean, I call it vibes. I guess that's what I'm going off of. I understand that, he should look around at Tua and all these contracts and everything and say, I've done more than that guy. And that's very fair. That's how people get paid, and that's the market. But as I said before, there's always to kind of stop this inflating quarterback market, there has to be a team that makes a stand. And there has to be a team that says, you know what, Tua? You're a good quarterback for our system, but we're not giving you $55 million. And go find it somewhere else and go see. Now, I'm not saying the 49ers are going to do that, but that's how you slow this down, because it's gotten to the point now that Dak Prescott makes $60 million a year. You think Dak Prescott's worth $60 million a year? No. Trevor Lawrence gets this deal. You think he's worth that right now? No. So I'm not saying that the 49ers are doing this to Brock, but I do think that Brock is going to meet them in the middle. Look, if anybody's worried about that $45 million contract thing, I think right now that is just them starting. And when you go back and you look at the history of the 49ers and their negotiations, George Kittle's negotiation was termed a bloodbath, right? And that's George Kittle, right? The guy that they're about to extend and make a lifetime 49er. I think right now it's March 5th. I don't think there's any grand sweeping statements other than this thing is starting to play out right now. It's going to play out in the media because Adam Schefter and everybody else is kind of carrying water right now for the 49ers. I will say that. There's a lot of negotiation that's going on right now through the media, but it doesn't mean anything other than on March 5th, this is where we are. I think the other things that we really need to look at are, the stuff about Aiyuk, and I think that has real legs. I am far more afraid of Brandon Aiyuk being traded this season than I ever was last year. And it sounded like that was close as well, too, right? And Kyle Shanahan had to get in there. So if we're talking about disarray, I just think that we're kind of just talking about we knew roster turnover was coming, but now the roster turnover is going to bleed into people that we thought were going to be here for a long time. So the names on the back of the jerseys are about to change drastically. And again, who knows what's going to happen? Brandon Aiyuk has a lot more rap lyrics to post as captions and have people break down and think that has to do with football. But this is just kind of the way things are going and the way the stories are coming out with the Yorks and how it sounds like they're tired of shelling out cash and not winning the deal, and the impatience is growing a little bit, So I think that's just where we are.
Yeah, and I think you make a good point. Is there is going to have to be a team that puts their foot down and say, "Well, no, we're not going to pay you." And I partially hope it's the Niners just to see them do it. But the concern I have is this: this is a more important negotiation, respectfully, than Nick Bosa, respectfully than Brandon Aiyuk, Deebo, Fred, George, because it's the quarterback, right? This is the most important position, and it's just. They had a chance to just get the good graces and be like, hey, especially after last offseason, right, Jason, where it kind of started slow and then it just kind of dragged. And then we got that, what was it, the bad vibes preseason, whatever you wanted to call it. Niners had a chance to nip that in the butt right away. Whether or not we would agree with the number, I don't know. But my issue is this just now already feels like we're advancing the bad vibes, right? This just already feels like something that's going to drag into June, July. And I know it's very early. I understand how negotiations work. Of course, they're offering low. That's how they start. But until Purdy signs that contract before June, I have a hard time believing that this is just magically going to fix itself. And you are absolutely correct, Jason. Brandon Aiyuk is a more pressing topic. Maybe I'm not as nervous because I haven't seen Jared Bailey tweeting every 3 seconds about Brandon Aiyuk being a Steeler. Maybe that's why it's a little different this year than last year. But yeah, I'm at a point where I'm just checking my phone and I almost expect the next notification that pops up is Aiyuk has been traded. And as I said, that's just again within the vacuum of the injury. I absolutely understand it. But you remove the injury, and I know that's a very big injury. I just don't get it because we saw how bad the passing offense was in 2024 without him. How just the existence of him, like gravity. I think you've used that word, the gravity he attracts, kind of like Stephen Curry, your little doll back there, right? Is the gravity he demands. People pay attention to Aiyuk, which I don't think it's necessarily coincidence, Jason, that with Aiyuk being out, Deebo had a really bad year and stuff like that. So it's just, I get it, but I don't, because if the belief if the belief is that this is a playoff contending team, I think you would want Brandon Aiyuk on your roster and take that chance once again to see if maybe he can recover. But if this is about retooling and rebuilding the 49ers, then why stop at just Brandon Aiyuk is kind of my point. Is there kind of in between these two thoughts?
Well, I think they don't view Brandon Aiyuk as a foundational piece,
which is silly.
Nick Bosa, edge, premium position. Fred Warner, linebacker. Tight end, George Kittle. Trent Williams, one more year, left tackle. Those are your foundational pieces. And this is why the 49ers were balking at the number for Brandon Aiyuk, because they're not going to throw him the football like a $30 million receiver. So that was part of the contentious parts of the negotiation. I did all of this with this little bit of targets. Give me more and I'll do more. And the 49ers said, well, Yeah, but we're not going to throw you the ball 170 times.
Yeah.
So why should we pay you like that? You know who gets the ball thrown to them 170 times? Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, those guys. So that's where the contentious part starts. So the 49ers never viewed him the way that Aiyuk viewed himself because of the offense. Because we're going to give the ball to McCaffrey. We're going to have Deebo Samuel touch the ball 8 times. We're going to give the ball to George Kittle. You're not going to get 10 targets a game. So they don't view him as a foundational piece. And they view him as someone who is very replaceable with another receiver who can get himself open, whether that's in the draft or whether that's free agency. Is that smart? No, but this is how they view him. And this is why they were balking at giving him that amount of money. You give that amount of money to somebody that you intend to pepper with targets, not, hey, if you get 7 targets in this game, cool. If you get 2, cool. We're not going to make it a priority to get you to football. That's just where they're thinking about.
So let's pivot this a little bit into some draft conversation, Jason. Just because this is my thought too. Brandon Aiyuk may be on his way out. Deebo Samuel out already. We saw this back in 2019, where they move on from DeForest Buckner, and they, despite other needs, kind of ignore. They could have had Tristan Wirfs. Instead, they go with Javon Kinlaw to be the direct replacement of DeForest Buckner. Fast forward a couple years later, Brandon Aiyuk on the block. They take Ricky Pearsall to maybe replace Aiyuk, and I mean, shit, maybe replace Aiyuk still, despite other needs. And this is how I'll pivot to the draft. Do you think maybe they look at 11 or maybe trade back and replace Aiyuk and Deebo and get a Pearsall, another reason? I know Jawan Jennings exists. I'm not trying to forget Jawan Jennings. I personally like Jawan Jennings as your third option. I don't like him as a first. Maybe a second option would be fine. Do you see that happening? This is really just a segue, Jason, to get us to draft talk. So you could say no and then be like, oh, this is who they should draft at 11. But just with their past, I think it is something that we should talk about because there's McMillan, Luther Burden. If you want to trade back, I love. Ooh, you want to talk about a guy that gets me excited in Niners jersey? Matthew Golden. Ooh, it's players like that. Could you see that being a possibility? And if not, where are you at of this moment with 11, Jason?
Possibility is small of that, and I think it's because this year's wide receiver draft class doesn't have that alpha stud. No Marvin Harrison, no Malik Neighbors, right? And then you go years back and you go through all the other names. This wide receiver class is fine. Ted McMillan feels like somebody who's going to be on later on. And if you want to stockpile picks, that's fine. I think as of right now, they play the board as it lays, as it goes. I know everyone's in love with Membu. Membu's for the streets. Don't even think about it. It's not going to happen at 11. He's gone. If you're looking around at possible guys that'll fall, if there's a shakeup early on, that Mason Graham will be there, right? I think Shamar Stewart, even though he has a lack of production, has pushed himself into a discussion of being in the top 10. There's going to be some funky picks, I think, in this draft for sure. And the 49ers are going to be in the weird spot, the spot that I don't like, of too many options. Almost you want to feel like that other people have taken all of the good players, and it's a very easy choice at 11. I don't like the idea of you having, Mason Graham, Will Campbell, Will Johnson, and then you have to choose between the 3 because now you're almost, you remember how they say, like, you have too many options, you have no options? I almost want to see some of those guys fly off the board so it becomes crystal clear what the 49ers want to do. As of right now, I think they're going to sit and they're going to play the board and watch how it goes. Yes. The guy that I want is the person they're not going to take. They are not going to take. I know that for a fact, but this is who I want. I want Will Johnson from Michigan, but they're not going to take him. They're not going to take him because just based on their track record of cornerbacks and everything as well, too. This has to be a defensive tackle thing or this has to be an offensive tackle, whatever it is. It's going to be one of those things, and I'm pretty sure I would lean defensive tackle right now from everything that I heard on March 5th. Mason Graham was talked about as a trade up option for the 49ers. So I think they stick at 11 and they see how the board falls. But if Mason Graham's there, they're not passing up on him, man.
No. Honestly, I think the combine might have been the best thing to happen to the 49ers because there's so many players that I feel like could fall at 11. Um, Unfortunately, the one that I was the most iffy on last week was Armand Membu.
Mhm.
And then he kind of played his way into my heart with the combine because I think at some point, like he's good on tape. I wasn't too keen on him, but then man, you see what an athletic freak he is. And I mean,
Yeah.
when they're pulling up his numbers and like here's Trent Williams and here's Tristan Wirfs, look how he compares. That changes it. But I think the Niners have so many options to go at 11. I love Will Johnson. Will Johnson, I've been on him. I didn't think he was going to fall to 11, and I think Bucky Brooks like a month ago had a mock draft that had him fall to 11. I've been in on that. Mason Graham would be one. I got to put Membu at 11 now, right? Like I all in on that. That's not going to happen.
Mm-mm.
But because of it, Will Campbell might fall to the Niners at 11,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that would be a positive because I find this draft has been so funny because it's either the combine wasn't great for them, but you have to watch the film to really appreciate them. And then
Mm-hmm.
to me, Will Campbell, I haven't watched a ton of Will Campbell,
Mm-hmm.
but from what I've read, like he pops on the film where he's sturdy.
Mm-hmm.
He's sturdy on film, but then those numbers really exploded. But then the two names that really intrigue me at 11 is Walker out of Georgia, linebacker edge, a little bit of both. And I know that gets you but it's just iffy. That athletic. It's iffy. Yeah. And can I rephrase this? This is if Will Johnson, Mason Graham, all the names we've talked about are gone because that's fully possible. That is fully possible. Trade back. But the other name, and I should not say that. Chat's gonna get so pissed. Jahad Campbell. I don't think at 11 maybe you trade back for him or where I don't know where he goes. I've seen top 10. I've seen top 20. Just the thought of Fred Warner and Fred Warner, Jahad Campbell in the same linebacking core. I know. Jason, if you thought that they would hate cornerback at 11, boy, oh boy, let me talk to you about an off-ball linebacker. I don't think you get him at 11. I think maybe you trade back and work. He is not somebody who you feel like take at 11, but you watch him and just athleticism. He can play in pass coverage and pass rush. He's pretty good at the run. And you think like the emotional leader Dre Greenlaw is. We talked about this after the Rams game, Jason, is you and I were both iffy on Dre Greenlaw. We liked him, but thought they could do better. And then we saw that one half with him and be like, holy shit, this defense feels completely different. If you want your instant replacement for Dre Greenlaw, Jahad Campbell, oh my God, he is so good. But again, I don't think I can sell you guys on a linebacker at 11. Iman is a great pick. I think at 11 at safety as well. I think that's an interesting pick. I think Miami at 13 would be better. I gotta say, there's two different thoughts of a school of thoughts now for the 49ers. Not excited about the current 49ers as it is, but this draft, there's just so many options, man, especially at 11. I love the Will Johnson idea, but I've been really chewing on that Jahad Campbell. I just think there's so many options the Niners have. And it's kind of an issue too, because that just means they have so many spots they have to fill.
I'm concerned with the idea of Will Campbell because Will Campbell is going to be a guard when he comes into the league. And are the 49ers going to spend the 11th pick on a guard? Probably not. Right.
Well, what's funny is I texted you 2 weeks ago. I was like, hey, like Jason, football question. What do you look at? At a tackle, why you think he's a guard? And 2 weeks ago, that was how I felt about Membu. It's like, okay, well, people think he's a guard, and now the combine, everyone's like, oh, he's a tackle, and now I want him. So yeah. Like it's almost like we flipped with Johnson and Membu. So I apologize, to cut you off there.
No, you're good. It's just the Campbell thing is like he's gonna be a guard. I think that's where he translates, and I think that's been all the buzz that was around at the combine while I was there was that he's not gonna be able to play tackle at this level. So the 49ers view him as a guard, and do they take him at 11? Probably not, right? Okay, so let's do linebacker. Jahad Campbell's linebacker 1. Like that's not even up for debate. Linebacker 1, okay? Sideline to sideline, pass rush, everything that you want. I think the things that I saw on film that make me a little bit nervous sometimes, on play action, he can bite on the cheese and he can get beat. Okay, fine. But we can figure that out. Honestly, him and Fred Warner together, you're getting Bowman and Willis like back together. All right. Okay. I don't know if they go linebacker there. Cornerback, they certainly don't go that high up, and they haven't, and they just haven't prioritized that. Although, if you want to get into it, Renardo Green was a second-round pick. That's fine. Look what you want. We're able to get there as well, too. So just when I'm putting the pieces together and I'm looking at all of these things, it's got to be defensive tackle, right? And if Mason Graham's not there at 11, trade back. Trade back right away and get back, because you don't take Walker at 11. That's too early. You don't take Shamar Stewart. You let somebody else go down that road. You don't take some of these other guys that are there. You just go back, get your picks later on, and there still will be good football players for you to choose there. But at 11, taking some of these guys, not going to happen. So I think it's Mason Graham or a trade back now at this point, even though, I talked to Jordan Reed. Do you have the video up, so we can put it? So
I wasn't able to find it, but if you is it on your channel, or if you want to just
it's
go
on my channel. I can text it to you.
I got you. I'll pull it up for you real quick, Jason.
I can text it to you right now. But if you're looking at the way and the track record, everything that they've been doing and how they go through the process, it's going to be Mason Graham or a trade back, in my opinion. That doesn't mean that that's what I do. That doesn't mean that I still want Will Johnson. I want to live in a world where Will Johnson's on the outside, Demo's is on the inside, kicked inside, and Renardo Green's on the outside, and the 49ers are absolutely clamps with Robert Saleh in the secondary, and no one's going to be able to throw the football against them for years and years and years, because they're all young and under contract. That's my vision. Vote for Jason Aponte in 2025, and I will get you your stud cornerback. I promise you. But again, all of that has to do with the fact that Will Johnson was injured last year. He fell down the board. If the draft was before the season last year, he's a top 5 pick essentially right off the bat. And depending on where you put Travis Hunter, he's the best cornerback in the draft. If Travis Hunter wants to go play wide receiver, then Will Johnson's the best. If he doesn't, then Will Johnson's number 2. And at 11, you're fine there. So I don't know if he's going to be there, but it's got to be Mason Graham or a trade back at this point if I'm putting myself in the 49ers shoes.
Yeah, and that was my very first thought with Will Johnson out of Michigan was the idea of you wouldn't have to think about your cornerback group for the next 4 years, man. Like you're set with Renardo, Will Johnson, and Deommodore Lenoir.
You've got a guy who literally mirrors Patrick Surtain, and he's on the outside, and he can press man. He can play corner, he can play cover corner, he can play zone, he can play off ball. He's great in run defense. There's not really any holes in his game aside from the fact that he was injured last year. Will Johnson's that guy, man. I want to live in a world where the 49ers literally have a stud corner group right here. And let me take this out the way or whatever, so you guys can see. I spoke with Jordan Reed of ESPN, and he talked about Will Johnson. He actually mocked him to pick 11. So go for it. I guess we're gonna have to run it through here.
I can full screen it. I'll full screen it. Let's see here. Well, we got to get rid of the layout. That's what it is.
You can't. Just go ahead. Just play it.
Perfect. We'll play. Where'd it go? I just completely lost it. Oh, wow. I hit play and it went away. So you know what?
This is great.
We're gonna retry it. I'm gonna pull it back up and we're gonna get it set. I hit play and it just completely disappeared, but I'm pulling it up right now. Live television, guy. I guess live internet. This stuff happens. We're gonna click present. We're gonna go share screen. We apologize for the delay, guys. Why is this not? It completely disappeared. Okay, Jason, stall for another second. I'm gonna get.
It's fine. If it doesn't work, you guys can check it out. It's literally a 2-minute video that's on my channel as well too, so you can check it out. And let's see if Andrew got it. All right, go for it. It's muted.
Oh, I have the audio. So there we go. We're having some technical difficulties. We're just gonna link it in the chat, so y'all can check that out. I don't know what happened there because it's playing in my ear. So apologize for that. Let me throw that link in the chat because we were trying to get that, but I have the audio in my ear.
Either way, look, it's going to be Mason Graham or a trade back. And that's just me going off of what the 49ers tend to do and what they need. And you know what? The Mason Graham thing is not a bad thing at all. I think what the 49ers have really, really lost is a player who can rush the passer and run defend, because Javon Hargrave, only a pass rusher. Malik Collins, only a pass rusher. Jordan Elliott, only a run stopper. You like we all were like, oh, well, Eric Armstead's gone. Well, Eric Armstead doesn't come off the field unless there's an injury, but he doesn't come off the field on any down. And now the 49ers need to find a defensive tackle who will play on every single down. Javon Hargrave can't play on rundowns. He gets blown off the ball. Again, Malik Collins, just a pass rusher. Jordan Elliott, awful as a pass rusher and just a run blocker, a run defender. That's like you can't have feast or famine. Like you can't have feast or famine when it comes to these things. One or the other. They need a defensive tackle who is going to be all of that. And Mason Graham profiles like that. So I don't see how the 49ers, if he's there at 11, I don't see how they let him slide.
Yeah, and to move it off the draft talk, when we're talking about the big three of potential defensive ends, the Niners could have gotten Myles Garrett, Max Crosby, Hendrickson out of Cincinnati. I wanted Crosby for that exact reason. If he's a 3-down edge rusher, right? And that's why I kind of like him more than Nick Bosa, is because he can do the run stop as well as the pass rush. And that's what the Niners need. Is they've been so focused on the pass rush aspect of things that you kind of saw what happened with the run defense last year. It just wasn't very good. And there was a lot of reasons for it. I wasn't a big fan of Nick Sorensen. Maybe Robert Saleh comes in and cleans it up a little bit, but you need a guy on the defensive line where it is you're here all 3 downs. You're going to be able to play every snap and stop the run while also being effective in the pass game. And I know Mason Graham's measurements might have been concerning to some 49er fans, but if you were a Mason Graham wanter, is that the word we're going to use? We want Mason Graham at 11, Mason Graham truther. That's exactly what you needed. You needed those poor measurements. That's how he's going to fall to you. Mm-hmm. You know, if he went out and measured like, we'll use Membu, right? Like, let's just say everything fit, he's gone. He's not getting to 11. And so that's exactly what the Niners needed. I'm a big Mason Graham believer. I think he is the right pick at 11. If the Niners are so lucky, I would even say he's the one guy you trade up to get if you don't feel like he's going to get to you. Because I'm at a point where I think Will Johnson is going to be there at 11. Whether the Niners want to take him or not, I don't know. I hope so. If it's a world where it's Johnson or Graham, you take Graham every time, I think. Right. But they needed those measurements for him to fall to them at 11. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah. And look, you know, there's different ways to go about this. If the 49ers are really serious about competing this year, which they're showing themselves to kind of be a little bit unserious right now, in that aspect. Yes. You know, you need help across this defensive line altogether. You know, a report came out today, or there was something on Twitter about Leonard Floyd being a cap casualty and being cut. Okay, well, at least Leonard Floyd's on the field and he has consistency and he has a motor. So what do? You address it with Mason Graham and you sign somebody like Azeez Ojulari to play on the edge, you know, from across from Nick Bosa, or do you, and I've seen this guy's name a lot as well too, Michael Williams. Do you take him at edge, right? And then you work your way to a defensive tackle in free agency. There's different ways that this can go. I know that the popular sentiment is draft 14 offensive linemen. Like that's the only thing that the 49ers should do is just every single pick offensive lineman. I'm not in that boat because I think that you found, especially when you look at what you found in Dominic Pooney, you found that you can find guys down the line. I think the way that you fix this offensive line is you sign Drew Dahlman. You probably let Ben Barch start at left guard, and then you try to find your developmental piece to either be the Colton McKivitz replacement after a year or the Trent Williams replacement after a year. But I think you can find that like later on. But you know, there's different ways to go about this, and I think that's really where this makes this interesting. And again, I'm interested. I'm intrigued. I think there's endless possibilities, but I don't like the idea that there's all of these possibilities because what are the odds that you're going to make the right decision, right? And I think when you have 5 or 6 and you start to go through the possibilities and there's more and more, there's obviously more of a chance that you're not going to get it right. And the 49ers can't afford to not get it right. And the 49ers can't afford to have one part of the plan go right, one part of the plan go wrong. No, this has to be a masterclass of you in free agency and you in the draft and it has to go hand in hand, and all of it has to fit. I don't know how you do that. I don't envy them being tasked with that. I don't envy anybody that has to do anything that's perfect. But here we are, and this is what the results are.
Watch the Angels draft 20 pitchers in one draft, and it didn't work. Same idea, Jason. But I think the thing with the offensive line too, Jason, and the thought I've really passed with, I think it's fully possible, and I'm talking in terms of valuable draft picks, so the first 3 rounds, because what the Niners have 5 first 3 round picks because of comps, or 4, whatever it is. I could see them signing Drew Dahlman and being like, that's the offensive line for 2025 right there. It's Trent, it's Barch, it's Dahlman, it's Pooney, and it's McKivitz, and we did our job. We're done. So like that could totally happen as well. This is going to be so interesting, this draft and how the Niners navigate this, because I know we like to say it a lot. This really is, and I'll put it within the scope of Sprint Right Option podcast. This is the most important draft of the last 5 years. The Niners need to nail this draft, because if they do not, the roster is just going to keep churning over, and there's going to be more and more cap casualties of players that we're familiar with. This year it'll be Aiyuk. Next year it'll be Warner. The year after that, Kittle. If this draft does not hit, so it's just. There's so much importance in this draft, and they have to nail it. They cannot, especially with those top 100 picks, no Jake Moody replacements, no tight ends that are never going to see the field. Your first 4 or 5 picks are going to need to be guys that make impacts this season, if not by next season. So they're going to have to nail this draft, and it starts at 11 and how they handle it.
Yeah, 100%. And, while we're on the subject, right now, for all intents and purposes, at wide receiver, the 49ers' 2 starters are going to be Ricky Pearsall and Juwan Jennings.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel good about that.
No.
I don't think anybody should feel good about that. I saw a ludicrous report that Tariq Owens is the future X. Let me stop you right there and tell you no. Okay, so you've got Pearsall, Cowing, and Jennings, and you got Aiyuk, who is still on the roster, definitely won't be ready for week 1.
Mm-hmm.
The 49ers have to sign Elijah Moore, Darius Slayton, possibly Amari Cooper. You have to go get guys there too as well. If you're talking about this draft class at wide receiver being right? Meh, right? Like there's not guys that are just going to be popping. Like let me take that back. Jaden Higgins, Jalen Noel, Jack Beck, Jalen Royals I'm interested in. Those are guys that on the back end that you can. But Kyle and his rookies, how does that feel? So Darius Slayton, Elijah Moore, 24 years old, $4.5 million a year, absolute steal. Guy who can separate, a smaller guy, fine, whatever, but he can get himself open. He doesn't need the offense to get open. He's a glove in hand fit in that offense. Darius Slayton, somebody who's been underutilized with the Giants. Obviously, that's a name that everybody's been throwing around. And then Amari Cooper, somebody that you're probably looking at. But what does that deal look like? Either way, the 49ers have 2 starting wide receivers, one of which can't really separate at the X position, which is why he's so good at contested catches and because he's a dog, Juwan Jennings. And Ricky Pearsall showed us something at the end of the year. But does that mean that he's ready to blossom into like that full-time guy? Are you going to bet on that? And I don't think Kyle Shanahan and Lynch can either. So wide receiver is a huge need. It is a huge need. And unless you want to see Chris Conley and Trent Taylor, I don't want to see those guys. So they've got to do something drastic here at wide receiver.
Jason, you mentioned a couple, but I'll open it up to any position. We're about 50 minutes here, so we'll be getting out of here. One of the last questions I got for you. Give me a name. Give me a name. You just threw out a couple, not first round. Give me a name for day 2, day 3, just somebody you want to throw out there to talk about for a second. You mentioned a couple receivers, but I won't tighten you to just receiver if there's anybody else outside of that spot.
Yeah, Trevor Etienne. Trevor Etienne is your pick at running back, Kyle Shanahan. I mean, if you're going to go again at running back, and this regime is telling us that they need to get younger and reset, Trevor Etienne is your pick. The guy doesn't have a lot of tread on his tire at Georgia. Silky smooth, can catch the football. Your offense does not change when he's on the field as well, too. You can throw him the football. He can run the football. He has no tread on his tires. He's an NFL-ready guy. Reminds me of an Alvin Kamara type that you're going to see come out of nowhere and play. Trevor Etienne's your pick if you're going to go with running back again. And if you're talking about getting younger, you're going to trade Jordan Mason, right? I say you trade Jordan Mason to Dallas. Let them give you a pick, which is an absolute win because he's an undrafted free agent and you get a pick for him. So if you want to get younger, you're not going to put that second-round tender on him. That's far too much. Let Jordan Mason go. Draft Trevor Etienne, roll into the season with Christian McCaffrey, Garendo, Trevor Etienne, and boom, and you're back with that position, and you've gotten younger, and you've gotten yourself an impact player. Trevor Etienne from Georgia is the running back pick.
I didn't expect you to go running back because Jason, we're gonna have a running back off. If you're gonna die on the Etienne hill, Bashal Tutin out of Virginia Tech, running back 4.3 240. I've popped on his tape every so often. When he cuts, he gains speed. He is so fast. It just didn't show on the 40-yard. It shows on the film how quick he can fight. He has the vision to find those holes that the Niners offensive line is going to be able to open up. He's got the burst. He's got the speed to get through it. His cuts are fast. He's so silky smooth. And then also the thing that held Jordan Mason back was the pass pro. I've seen Tutin throw some blocks in that backfield. So I'm excited because if you're going to be on the Etienne hill, I'm going to be on the Tutin hill, and we'll fight until April and see and have the Niners pick neither of them and go completely outside for a running back that we didn't even think about. That's how it works. But man, if I can get Bashal Tutin in a Niners uniform this April, I would be very excited. I think he's going to be a dude, and I really did not expect you to go running back there. So I'm excited that we have a little bit of a contention on who our running backs are.
Yeah, I mean, all that means is Donovan Edwards, pack your bags. You're going to Santa Clara, pal. Yeah,
that's it's just going to be the most random that we just did not think about, because Kyle Shanahan loves his running backs in the mid rounds.
Get all the Michigan guys. That's it. Just draft all Michigan guys. Mason Graham, find a way. Try to trade back into the first to get Will Johnson. Donovan Edwards, that's fine as well too. Shit, let's go get Loveland as well too at tight end. Like, let's just get go all Michigan. But if we're gonna go tight end, somebody that I really like, Mason Taylor from LSU, and I think that's somebody that could be had a little bit later on. I think we have this idea in our head about two tight ends in this offense because we had once upon a time in 2020 Jordan Reed and George Kittle and the idea of both of them. I don't know if Kyle Shanahan sees it that way. Kyle Shanahan wants to have a second tight end just to be another blocker, and that's why they want Brock Wright. But if you're looking to have somebody who can do a little bit of both, it's Mason Taylor, and you do. I hate to say it, George Kittle's going to sign an extension. He's going into the Ring of Honor. He's going to retire as a 49er. He's the best tight end in football. You need to start finding your succession plan. And if you don't believe me, believe the way that they've drafted. You drafted Cam Latu. He's working at Walmart. You drafted Braden Willis. He's not here anymore, right? Or he's here and he's just here in a limited capacity role. You try to go get Brock Wright. You've been trying to address this tight end 2 position the entire time, essentially, since Kyle Shanahan's been here. So now it's time to go get a guy that for a fact can play, and Mason Taylor's that guy. I really like him.
Let me give you another name. I don't know where he stands. I looked at a couple of mock drafts today, one on NFL.com. It wasn't who was the guy who had Dart going third? It wasn't Charles Davis. It was somebody else. And Charles Davis had it, but there was another NFL mock draft I looked at, and Dame Brugler. Malachi Starks did not help himself out at the combine. I don't think he falls out of the first round. I don't think he had that bad of a combine. I have seen a couple mocks since the combine that have him out of the first round. If he's somehow there at 41, I'm all in on that. I watched a little. I don't think he's going to be there. I don't think he falls out of the first round. I'm just going off of mocks that I saw today. And maybe he's in that territory of you move up to get him late, kind of like I don't like to use the Reuben Foster thing where it's like you move up late in the first round. I'm not the best player to use for that, but that and Aiyuk are examples of them going up though. Yeah, exactly. So Aiyuk's another one. Perfect. Great. I love that one too. They go up. Malachi Starks, I didn't realize how versatile he was, man. I watched him against Texas, and he would line up in the slot, man, press coverage, and he'd be running those routes with those receivers. Niners need a safety as well because it seems like Talanoa Hufanga. I don't think he falls out of the first round, but boy, oh boy, if he does, I think that would be a great pick. And I mean, even if he falls to that 30 to 35 range, move up, go get him. I think he's going to be a baller.
Yeah, 100%. And again, safety is going to be very interesting, right?
Mhm.
It sounds like Hufanga's gone.
Yep.
It sounds like Greenlaw is going to test free agency, and I would think that he's gone. So what do? Do you throw money at Justin Reed to play next to Malik Mustafa? Do you try to get a guy in the draft? Like, that's going to be interesting. And do you believe in Robert Saleh enough to fix Jair Brown? Like that's another thing. Like, are they all the way out on Tig as well too? I knew he fell out of favor when Hufanga came back, but are they all the way out with the idea that Saleh is going to be there now, right? And Saleh's secondary is going to be a lot more solid. I can't even speak. A lot more solid. So
a lot of asses there,
right? Do you go back to Tig, right? Like, are you out on him as well too? So all that stuff is interesting, like one way or another, right? And I think that spot is going to be the most interesting spot in the secondary because everything else is set in stone. Like Malik, Renardo, and Lenore, you're in. You bring in Will Johnson, now you're really cooking in that secondary, and you just got to figure out safety. But it's going to be interesting to figure that out. And I just wonder if the idea of what happened with Tig last year has to do with the fact that Nick Sorensen didn't exactly put him in the right spot, and he has some things that he himself have to clean up. And now Robert Saleh is going to be there, and they're going to coach him up in a different way. And Gus Bradley's there, and he's the guru of the cover 3 Legion of Boom shit. So I wonder if they still go back to that and they still believe in the player. I don't know if they do. I can't say. I'm just saying you can't throw Tig out right away because there is a chance that he can bounce back.
Yeah. Listen, man, it's going to be a very exciting draft. The Niners have so many paths, and there is just who said it, Jason? Did Steve Smith say it? I don't know where he got it, but the whole idea of undrafted free agents last year would be third round. But I don't know where he got that. This feels like a very deep draft, and it feels like one where it feels like the Niners can really like replicate their top of the draft last year where they got guys who came in and contributed early. I could totally see that being this draft for the 49ers. And then there's a lot of names, but for the time being, the draft's going to take a little bit of a step back because we are less than a week away from the new league year. Everybody's favorite day of the calendar, March 12th. Legal tampering is going to kick off in a couple of days as well. So free agency, we might be talking about, hey, look at those pass rushers, but the Niners might add a couple of pass rushers, Myles Garrett maybe, right? So the Niners draft idea can absolutely change over this next week or two. So we'll see what it looks like, Jason. We'll be back next week to discuss all the big signings that the Niners are going to make, right? All the big money they're going to spend without trading any money. They're not going to get rid of Aiyuk, right? All that stuff. We're going to talk about it, Jason. It's been great. Last thing, boy, oh boy, thank you for the Long Live ASAP recommendation.
Woo, what an album.
What an album, buddy. And then 2 days later, found not guilty or acquitted of all charges, whatever it was. I don't speak the legal mumbo jumbo. So, Jason, I'll ask you the question I left you off with last time. Give me an album, buddy, because it worked really well with Long Live ASAP. So give me an album.
Free ASAP until it's backwards, and it did happen. You know what? You were asking me about it, and I think this is on the heels of his appearance in the WWE in which he gave Cody Rhodes a black eye. But if I have to pick one of his projects, and believe me, I enjoy many of them, it's going to be Birds in the Trap by Travis Scott. I think you will thoroughly enjoy that album. It felt like Rodeo was a very dark album, you know, like it felt like an extension of Yeezus. Because if you ever listen to Yeezus, that's a lot of Travis Scott influence all over that, which, you know, Kanye West has been known to do is steal the sauce from somebody else and throw it on his own shit. And then he's like, hey, I'm giving you a look, you know? So Rodeo feels a little bit more like an extension of Yeezus, even though it has, like I said, it has two of my favorite Travis Scott songs on there, Maria, I'm Drunk, and Apple Pie. But Birds in the Trap is like him finally breaking away from that and the next step of his journey. So Travis Scott, Birds in the Trap I think that's where Birds in the Trap Sing McKnight is where you should go next.
Hell yeah, man. I've needed to listen to more rap just in general because I've always liked it, but never got too deep into it. But now I have more lyrics to post when I'm upset with my employer, and get
Ah,
everybody in a tizzy about it. And then Ryan Fitzpatrick can translate those lyrics to people. So that's really what I'm here for.
I love it. I mean, that's peak off season right there. Like right off the rip. Like, what is he saying? I'm like, that's clearly a rap lyric, but either way.
It's my favorite thing to say, Jason. The social media stuff, it means nothing until it means something, and it means something until it means nothing. You can take it's almost like PFF grades. If I want to use it for my argument, I'm gonna use it
Fits
for
my
my
narrative.
argument. But if I don't like that narrative, it doesn't exist out there. So that's what it is. Jason, any New Year's resolutions for you this year?
I'm already on it.
Yeah.
I'm closing in 1 week. I'm closing in on 30 days alcohol free.
Hell yeah! Look at that.
Yeah. So I'm already on that. That has been great. Renewed energy, clear mind.
Love it.
Locked in.
Love it.
Like today I went and I read from my daughter's class. All of these
Love
things are
that.
possible. Without it. So yeah, I don't know if I'll ever go back, man. I don't know if I'll ever go back, but I feel
Love it.
great. And
Love it.
it started as a break, but I might just never come back. So who
Never
knows?
come
But
back.
yeah,
Proud of you.
yeah.
Proud of you, Jason. Proud of you, Jason. I'm excited. March 12th, New Year's. Jason already killing his New Year resolution. We love it. Hey, Jason, we're going to get out of here. We'll be back next week. Go make sure to go watch. I linked it in the chat. You guys have been great with the chat. Make sure to go watch Jason talk to Jordan Reed about Will Johnson, because that's something I've been on for a few weeks. I know, Jason, this isn't a new thing I'm not trying to take credit, but you've been on Will Johnson too. It feels more and more likely, especially with the combine. So go check that out. Jason works very hard, talks to a lot of people to get this information. So go check that out. It's a 1.5-minute video. Go listen to what Jordan Reed of ESPN had to say about Will Johnson. I believe actually he had another pick in that. Oh, it was Landon Jackson.
Jackson was the second pick. Edge
was the second pick. So good. That I would take a corner and an edge first 2 pick. I think that's a good step to restart this defense. So Jason Aponte, we got to the point. Great episode. I loved it. Jason Aponte, as always.
Let's go Niners. Enjoy the offseason and buckle up.
Yeah, enjoy. Do your best to enjoy the offseason, because the Niners seem like they're going to try very hard to make you not enjoy it. But we'll talk next week.
Welcome, everybody.
We are live.
My name is Jason Aponte.
I am Andrew Pasquini.
We're working. That's it. We're working over here. That's it. Let's go Niners.
Let's go Niners. Sprint right